Krishna tells Yudhishthir that Bhishma is one person who has the most experience of administration and who understands the do's and don'ts of Raj Dharma. Before he dies, gain all the wisdom that he has. And that is what we call Shanti Parva. When COVID happened and people died, is it that only Garib people died? Even Amir people died? Money couldn't guarantee your happiness. Money couldn't guarantee your safety. And whenever this happens, you will see people moving more and more and more towards spirituality.
Namaste and welcome to this episode of the OddCast show. Did the Mahabharata really happen? What is the Mahabharata? Is it just a family feud? Or is there something more to it? Are there lessons of life to learn from this? This great grand epic teaches us a lot.
Namaste and welcome to this episode of the OddCast show. Today we will be discussing unknown facts of the Mahabharata, and for that we are joined by Ami Ganatra ji. Welcome to the show, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Always happy to talk about the Mahabharata.
So, ma'am, to start off, my understanding of the Mahabharata is a family feud between two sides of the family, the Kauravas and the Pandavas, over certain reasons such as land, wealth, and whatever other things that we don't know about. So, I would love for you to explain why is it relevant for an 18-year-old like me to know about this, and how can it help me?
Great question. So it's like दो families झगड़ रहे हैं, मेरे को क्या?
Exactly.
That's a very good question, because many a times Mahabharata is reduced to something that you mentioned, a family feud.
Yeah.
Cousins है, झगड़ रहे हैं, आज भी होता है, क्या हुआ है ना? However, if you see the Mahabharata, the yuddha of the Mahabharata is not any yuddha. It's called the Dharma yuddha. And the place where it has happened. So if you see the first shloka of Bhagavad Gita, it says Dharma kshetre kurukshetre. In the Dharma kshetra kurukshetra. Kurukshetra is what? It's a place where the war has actually been fought. And it has been called as a Dharma kshetra. What is Dharma? Dharma is the overarching principle which ensures sustenance, prosperity, whatever duties, responsibilities are followed in the society. In any civilized society. By and large, that is what dharma means. If it was just a family feud, why would it be called the Dharma Yuddha? Right? So that is one question which I'll attempt to answer. The other is, Mahabharata, even though it seems simple like a family feud, it is called as a Dharma Shastra. What is a Dharma Shastra? Dharma Shastra is a text, is a scripture, which is supposed to teach us lessons for life, how to live our lives. Okay, क्या करना चाहिए, क्या नहीं करना चाहिए, what are virtues, what are vices, how to deal with ethical dilemmas. All that is what Dharma Shastras would teach you. A normal scripture will say, ye karo, ye na karo. It will have list of do's, list of don'ts, vagere, vagere. It will have list of theories. What is papa, what is punya, what happens if somebody does punya, what happens if somebody does papa, all of that. Theory. But how do you understand the theory in real life? So you're just 18. When you grow up, when you do your management courses and stuff, you will have something called as case study. You might be aware of that, right? We have case studies. So what are case studies? Case studies have theory. Okay, they will say there is a concept in management about how to run a factory well. They will say, okay, take care of the production floor. Have so many people, have this processes, all of that. Okay, that is one way of putting theory. The other is where they will say, one person had a big factory. This is how it was run. These were the problems that came up. This is how it was solved. This, when somebody did X, they were successful. When somebody did Y, they lost. Why did they lose? Because they didn't do other APC activities that had to be done. Now, the same thing in theory, when explained through a story of a real life, clearly it makes more sense, right?
Yeah.
It's the same about Mahabharata. We call it the Itihas, but what is Itihas? Itihas is the case study of the Dharma Shastra. Dharma Shastra, which tells us how to live our lives properly. So through this family story, we understand the nuances of Dharma. Okay? We understand how to deal with our ethical dilemmas. The interesting part here is that it's a fight between cousins, between relatives. If it is a fight between two countries, it's very easy, no? Everybody roots for their own country.
Yeah.
Nobody will have any problem because the other person is clearly an enemy. When it is a family, when it is a fight of cousins, clearly there are going to be relatives on both sides. There will be people you know on the other side. Some of them might be your grandfather, your teacher, your uncles, right? It's never easy to fight with your own people. But still, we see that in Mahabharata, this war has happened. Today, when a family feud happens, what happens at max? They'll go and fight it out in the court. You don't have to kill. Here, this is a war where you actually have to kill because these are royal families, these are Kshatriyas, right? At that point in time, what is more important? So, if you see this beginning of Bhagavad Gita, where is the big? You know what is Bhagavad Gita? What is Bhagavad Gita?
So, I mean, like, there's many definitions towards it, but I'll just say that Bhagavad Gita is like a manual for me.
Huh.
It teaches me how to do certain things.
Right.
And a lot of people think that Bhagavad Gita is just some sort of religious manual. But I'd say that the main thing it taught me is that it teaches me how to practice bhakti in even when I may not have time. Because that's why it's taught in the middle of a battlefield.
Right.
So that's how I'll take it.
Okay. But where does it happen? In the middle of the battlefield.
Yeah.
And why does it happen? Like, why is Krishna giving that message of Bhagavad Gita to Arjun?
I'd say because that's the most mentally conflicting time for him, because he has to go against what he thought was his conscience. Like, he has to fight his relatives, maybe take their lives in the process, and do certain things that he wouldn't have done normally.
Fantastic. So at that point in time, when they're standing in the battlefield, Samne, there are not your enemies, they're your own people. He sees his grandfather, he sees his teacher, he sees his uncle, all of them, and his cousins. His cousins have wronged.
Definitely.
That is for sure. See, the premise is that Kauravas have not been fair to the Pandavas. That has led to this battlefield. And why are they in the battle? Wasn't it possible for them to negotiate? Wasn't it possible to somebody to intervene and say, "Bhai, mat lado. Aap thoda sa inko de do, aap thoda sa unko de do, compromise kar lo." Could have happened, should have happened. Usme bhi they tried. ठीक है? They tried significantly to ensure that the war does not happen. But if you see right from the beginning, the Kauravas have hated the cousins who are the Pandavas so much that they've made multiple attempts to kill them, to destroy them. Okay. Even after that, the Pandavas have tried to ensure that there is peace in the family. And they say, you know what has happened, right? Duryodhana has taken away Indraprastha, which is the kingdom of the Pandavas. And he's not giving it back. So the Pandavas say, okay, you want to keep my kingdom? You keep it. They've gone through the 13 years of exile and everything. So they say, you want to keep my kingdom? Kingdom, you keep them. Just give us 5 villages. That is enough for us. Duryodhana says, what 5 villages? I will not even give you a needle's worth of land. Why? Because I don't want to live with you. Now you are in a position where your opponent just wants to kill you. Will you say, oh, peace matters, हाँ तुम मुझे मार दो? Or will you say, nothing doing, I need to survive. And if you want to kill me, I will fight it back. Right? For whoever is there on the other side. Because if you allow the other person who's a bully to torture you and walk over you, he will be encouraged to do it to others also. Right? Now, if you are in a position, or rather your role in the society is to establish peace and justice, you should fight back. But it is your family. So on one end, you don't fight your family members because it is also your responsibility to take care of your family.
Yeah.
But here, what is Arjun dealing with? He's conflicted because he has to take care of his family, which he has to now fight. On the other side, here is the larger dharma of establishing the right precedence and justice. What should he do? That's not an easy answer, right? Hence, this war is not just any war. It's a dharma yuddha. It is about doing your larger duty. It is about setting the right precedence for ensuring there is peace, prosperity, and justice in the larger society. Now, that ethical dilemma that Arjun is facing, we all face in our lives. in different measures. At some point, it is possible that those responsibilities conflict. How do you take a call? Say there is a woman, okay, she's a mother and she's also an executive, a chief executive of a company. Tomorrow, she has a very important meeting that is going to give her a promotion. That very day, her son falls very, very ill. What should she do?
Should take care of
Probably
the son.
take care of her son.
Maybe easier, but she's giving up a big promotion. Right? Is that right or not? So
Both are right, both are wrong. I mean, like, that's, and I guess that's where the Mahabharata comes in, where, it teaches you how to deal with the situation.
Deal with those situations. What would be the right thing to do at that point in time? Now, if it was possible that the husband would say, you go, I will take care of the child, then she could have gone. But if that was not an option, then probably you'd have to say, yaar, promotion to baad mein bhi ho jayega. Right? Now, say it was not about the promotion. Let's talk about somebody who's at the level of Mukesh Ambani. Okay. He has a meeting which is going to give him a big deal. Okay. Which is going to impact some lack of employees he has. He has about many lakh employees, right? That is going to impact all of them.
Yeah.
And Anant Ambani is not well in the hospital. Will we say, take care of your child? Then what should he do? Somebody at Ambani's level. Say there was a worker in the factory. Easy, no? You take care of the child, somebody will take care of your job.
Yeah.
Can you say that about Ambani? But the conflict is still there. What would you say? What would somebody advise Ambani?
Mostly they'd say you go family first.
Family first?
I mean,
which means
mostly, but in that context, they'd say you take care of the livelihood of the other.
there are lakhs of people who are dependent on you.
It's the larger good.
Larger good, because he's at that position. The same thing, although it is a war of cousins in Mahabharat, these are not normal people. They are rajas. They are meant to establish dharma and set precedence for justice. So what should that do, right? So they went through an ethical dilemma. We are all going through ethical dilemmas in our life. We all have to make decisions. What is it about making decisions? Whenever you make a decision, you're doing a trade-off. That is the same thing happening in Mahabharat. And hence, it is still relevant and it will always be relevant because it teaches us how to deal with such conflicts in life and what really matters in the end.
I think what you're mentioning also is also summarized very well in the Vidurniti, where he talks about it at the end and he says that to sacrifice, to save your family, you may even have to sacrifice your son. And to save your village, you may have to sacrifice your family. To save the state, you may have to sacrifice your village. And to save your country or nation, you may have to sacrifice your village and state. So I think that's where you're coming from. Is that,
says, so I'm glad you brought it up. What Vidurji is saying is, he's giving a hierarchy, some guiding hierarchy as to how should you take decisions. Okay, how do you make the trade-off? He says, Tyajet ekam kulasya arthe, kulam tyajet gramasya arthe. If by giving up one person, if you can save the larger family, do that. If you're going to protect your country by sacrificing one village, ek village unko jaane do, let them capture it, but save everything else. You should do it. Similarly, by protecting, by giving up your family, protect the village, do that. By giving up your village, if you can protect the country, do that. In the end, he says something very interesting. He says, Atmarthe prithvim tyajet. But what eventually matters is this Atma inside you. See, because at the end of the day, this hierarchy is a good guiding principle. But as I said, what works for a worker might not be the same for Ambani. Or what is the hierarchy for Ambani might not be the same for the worker because the scope of their influence is different. Right? So then what matters? See, we all pretty much know, if we ask ourselves honestly, what we should do.
It's written in our essence.
If we objectively ask ourselves, not driven by desire, liking, disliking, attachments, then we know. And when we behave in a way that is not aligned with that Atma, we feel guilty. What is the feeling of guilt? Why do we feel guilty? Because we know we could have done something right and we did not. That is guilt.
The subconscious mind is telling you that
It's
all the
telling
time.
you that. Exactly. Vidur is saying, at the end of it all, what matters is this. For not feeling guilty, do what you must.
So I also want to talk about, Amiji, about so many, stars and unsung heroes in the Mahabharata. And of course, you can't, I would like to begin with Arjun. And one odd thing that I read in your book, a couple of odd things about Arjun is that his own son, he fights his own son, and then, his son lays him unconscious. And then there is a mention of Sanjeevani money, which is brought from the Nagas, and he is resurrected or he comes back to consciousness. That's one incident. So is this the same Sanjeevani or similar to what we hear in the Ramayana, which Hanumanji brought for Lakshman?
So in Ramayana, what you have is a Sanjeevani booty,
Right.
the herb.
Right.
Okay. Sanjeevani means what? Getting back to life.
Correct.
Coming back to consciousness.
Right.
That is what it is. Hence the similar name.
Right.
But here it's a money. So in Mahabharat, Arjun, who's the wife of Arjun? Do you know?
Other than Draupadi? There are many.
Good, yes. So there is Draupadi, of course, is one. But he has he's married to 3 other women. Okay. One is Subhadra, who's the sister of Krishna. Okay, half sister of Krishna. You have Chitrangada and you have Ulupi. Ulupi comes from the tribe of the Nagas.
Right.
And Chitrangada is the princess of Manipur. Okay. Through Ulupi, he has a son who's Iravan. Through Subhadra, he has a son who's
Abhimanyu.
Through Draupadi, he has one more son, Shrutkirti.
I'm a little off with the names.
That's fine. And then through Chitrangada, he has a son called Babruvahana.
Correct.
Okay. So the episode, that event you're talking about, is with his son Babruvahana.
Correct.
Because Abhimanyu and Iravan are dead in the Yuddha. So this incident happens after the Kurukshetra war.
Right.
So what has happened there is that after the Kurukshetra war, Yudhishthir has undertaken the Ashwamedha Yagna. Okay, and in Ashwamedha Yagna, what do is, they take a good horse, a breed of the good horse, and they ask that horse to just go wherever he wants, wherever. Okay, and there will be some warrior who follows that horse. Whichever kingdom the horse goes to, it's like a challenge to that kingdom. Either you accept our sovereignty or you accept our adhipatya, which is pay tax to us.
Yeah.
Okay.
Allegiance.
Allegiance. You allege. What is it called? You swear your allegiance to us, but it's not like बोल दिया ऐसे नहीं. तुमको tax भरना है. Tax के return में they'll take care of you. Okay. Or if you don't want to do that, you fight us. If the warrior taking care of the horse is defeated, तो अश्वमेध हो ही नहीं सकता. But if the ones who say कि नहीं, we challenge you, if they get defeated, they have to accept. They have to swear their allegiance and also pay the tax. Okay. तो वो होता है, and eventually after 1 year, the horse goes back to the kingdom and a huge yagna happens, and the Raja is considered to be the supreme Raja of all. Because everybody has now accepted, right?
Yeah.
सबके सब राज्यों के ऊपर वो जीत गए वहां पर.
Correct.
तो वैसा एक अश्वमेध यज्ञ is undertaken. The objective of the yagna is also to distribute wealth, because so much death has happened in the war, right? So the idea is that all the wealth you've created, you also distribute it, and create some sort of festivity around it. So that has been undertaken, and a horse has been left, and Arjun is taking care of that horse. So jate, that horse has gone to Manipur. Now, why is it that Babruvahana has not participated in the war? As I told you, he is also a son of Arjun. But the clause set when Arjun married Chitrangada was that the son of Chitrangada will be the ruler of Manipur. Because वहाँ कैसा होता है कि जो usually there has been a trend that even if the daughter has a son, the son takes over from his grandfather as the Raja. Okay, it's like a matrilineal system, sort of.
From the Nana.
From the Nana he takes over. So he, although is the son of Arjun, he belongs to Manipur only. Okay, he is the prince of Manipur. वैसे था. So घूमते the घोड़ा reaches Manipur. So it's a challenge from Arjun to Manipur. But Babruvahana knows it's his father. So
Yeah.
he's very happy. And he goes to greet the father. But Arjun is like, come on, ye kya kar rahe ho? I have challenged you. You're my son. You have to behave like a warrior. You have to fight me. Okay. So what starts off as a friendly fight gets really intense. And Babruvahana is also a great warrior.
Yeah.
और वो उनके युद्ध में at one point Babruvahana, both of Arjun injures Babruvahana injures Arjun, and at one point Babruvahana hits him so hard that Arjun falls unconscious. Okay. Now when Arjun falls unconscious on that Ashwamedh trip, Ulupi is with him. Ulupi is the other wife, who's the mother of Iravan, who has been dead.
Yeah.
She's with him and she's from the Naga tribe. So she sees this, that Arjun has fallen unconscious. Chitrangada comes running. She is very unhappy कि ये क्या हो गया? मेरे तो बेटा और पति दोनों की ऐसी हालत हो गई. So Ulupi says, no, you don't worry. I will get Arjun back. And she has the Nagamani, which is called the Sanjeevani Mani, and through that Arjun comes back to life. So
Wow.
that is that story of the son defeating the father. Well,
There's another instance.
In some sense, this is the first ever time that Arjun has been defeated. Yeah, this has never happened before. But then it was a father-son thing. So
I guess
maybe
it was
going
more
a
of a
little
soft
easy.
corner. He
Yes.
was soft on his son,
Yes.
where he didn't, he wanted to, not.
Exactly.
Beat
He
him,
wants his son to still overpower him.
Right. And the other instance is at the end when he's again defeated once by the. I'm forgetting the
Abhiras.
name. Sorry?
Abhiras.
Yeah. And there, after that, he just gives up everything and he goes into Vanvas again.
Yes.
So how come he's defeated there when he's.
That incident comes in towards the very end of the Mahabharata. What happens there is this is like after 36 years of the Kurukshetra Yuddha.
War ending.
And that is probably the first time that Arjun has really lost. उसमें क्या होता है? After 36 years, do I already say that story? So what actually happens is that Krishna's entire clan has destroyed itself, the Yadavas.
Yeah.
ठीक है? They fought with each other, they've destroyed themselves. Krishna has also done his Dehatyag, and Arjuna has been called to take the survivors, which is a lot of women and children, to safety
From Dwarka.
from Dwarka. So Dwarka has also submerged.
Yeah.
So he is with a troop of women and children essentially, and he's taking them back to Hastinapur so that they can survive. Beach mein, they are attacked by some dacoits. Okay, the Abhiras jo bolte hain, dacoits attack them. And Arjun ke liye fighting dacoits was no big deal. ठीक है, he had defeated armies single-handedly.
Yeah.
But suddenly he realizes that he is not up to his game. जैसा वो पहले आर्चरी कर सकते थे वैसा कर नहीं पा रहे हैं. He had what is called as अक्षय तुनीर. Basically उनके इसमें से जो बाण है ना वो आते रहते थे.
It was
would never get empty.
it was never ending.
Exactly. Akshay, so never
That was
gets
a boon.
empty. That was he'd gotten it as a gift from
Right.
Agnidev.
Right.
So that he had, but he realized his arrows went for a toss. कुछ बचा नहीं, खत्म हो गया. The Abhiras defeated him and took away some of the women and children and all that. And it had never happened before. So एक तो Krishna is dead. That's a shock. Dwarka has been destroyed. And now he realizes that his skill is not with him. He's not as skilled a warrior as he was supposed to be.
Yeah.
He's forgotten his mantras, the astras which he had, he's forgotten them. And he realizes that ये क्या हो रहा है? So he goes to Vyasdev ji and he says कि ऐसा ऐसा हुआ. And Vyasdev says this is basically the time to now say हो गया. Retire. छोड़ दो अब सब. Give up your kingdom. Give
Take
it to
sannyas.
your whatever, whoever is your successor, which is Parikshit, and you guys leave. So that's when they decide to take sannyas and walk away, and that is when the Mahaprasthan Parva.
So since you mentioned about Krishna and Dwarka, the end of Dwarka and the end of an era, there also I understand that there was some sort of a curse on Krishna which was given to him 36 years ago.
Yeah.
And so can you tell us about what happened there and how this unfolded?
So actually there are two curses. One is on Krishna, and this is given by Gandhari. Gandhari knew this was going to be the case. Okay, but she's a mother, and when you actually see it happen, so much destruction, the entire family is khatam. She gets very agitated, and she says she blames Krishna for it. She says, Krishna, if you wanted, you could have stopped the war, but you didn't. You let my children fight. You let the cousins fight. Because of that, I curse you that even your own people will kill themselves. And
Each
you
other.
will die. Each other will fight amongst themselves and your clan will get destroyed. Like my family is destroyed. And you will also die a very ignominious death. ऐसे वो उनको बोलती है. Krishna just smiles. He doesn't say anything. Or rather, he doesn't get angry. He just smiles. He says, the Yadavas will anyways get destroyed. I don't have any doubt in that. Why? Because they've become too strong and too depraved for their own good. तो उनका end तो ऐसा होना ही है. But he says, don't blame me for what has happened. You knew how your sons are. Gandhari also knew that Krishna and everybody tried to negotiate, tried to achieve at peace, to achieve a compromise so that there would be peace. But the Kauravas did not listen. Duryodhana did not listen. So he's like, you've known everything. Why are you blaming me for it? You know your son was at fault. But he does not take that curse. He accepts it.
He had the ability to not take it, right?
He could
Being
have. If he
Krishna.
consider him to be Bhagwan, he could have. But that's the thing about Bhagwan. They do not interfere in the natural process. Whatever comes to life has to die. Death is there is no other constant than death. Death is truth. Whatever comes to life will get destroyed, will die, right? He doesn't want to interfere in that process anyways. But the kind of destruction, the curse which Gandhari has given, there is one more curse on the Yadavas.
Okay.
And the story behind that is that there is कि द्वारका में कुछ ऋषि आए हैं और Yadavas have gotten very mischievous. So there is one son of Krishna who's Samb. They dress up Samb as a woman and they dress Samb up as he's pregnant. And they go and play trick with the rishis. So they go to the rishi and say कि ये जो है ना ये बबरू करके there is some Yadava. They say this lady is some Yadava's wife and she's pregnant. You please use your siddhi and tell us whether she will have a boy or a girl. Now this is not a lady. This is Samba who's a man. So they are just trying to make fun of the rishi. Because if they say ladka ladki, then they say hey ये तो हम मजाक कर रहे थे. The rishis obviously get to know that these guys are just मस्ती कर रहे हैं और prank कर रहे हैं. क्यों? You have to respect them, right? You don't do this. And these are not bachas who are doing it. So the rishis get very angry and they say, Acha, this is what you want. Huh? You are trying to make fun of us. Okay. This Sam will definitely will conceive. But what will come out of it is not going to be a person. It will be a lokhand ka rod jaisa.
Right.
And that will be the reason of the destruction of you Yadavas. Many years later, the Yadavas decide to go on a picnic. So they go on a picnic and all the things that were banned, they start consuming it. Okay, they get high, they're all drunk. Usme they start fighting with each other, vagere vagere. And they start killing each other because they are warriors at the end of the day. Na? तो एक दूसरे को वो कृतवर्मा है वो सत्यकी कृतवर्मा को मार देता है. फिर कृतवर्मा's brothers kill Satyaki. Okay. Then they just randomly start fighting with each other and they start throwing weeds at each other. वो weed, grass का weed होता है ना दे. But वो कहाँ पे है? They are by the seashore. So that lokhand ka thing, the powder which they have thrown in, so suddenly this grass weed has become like thorn of iron. Okay, so when they're throwing that at each other, they are getting killed also. And वैसे ही एक दूसरे को मार मार के वो मर जाते हैं. That is what happens. And at that point, of course, Krishna also, he gets to know कि ऐसा ही होने वाला है, so he doesn't interfere, he lets things happen. जो कुछ बचे होते हैं उनको खुद मार देते हैं. And then he sends his charioteer, Daruk, to get Arjun. To tell Arjun को बोलते हैं कि आके जो बचे हैं उनको लेकर जाओ. And he also sits under a tree. When he's sitting under a tree, just meditating, a hunter shoots an arrow at Krishna. That's a poisonous arrow. Krishna accepts that also. And he does his dehatyag. So that is the end of Krishna as well. As Gandhari had said.
And in the backdrop, Dwarka is submerging.
And wahan pe, so Arjun comes, by the time Arjun comes, Krishna has done his dehatyag. He gets the survivors out. And just when they are leaving Dwarka, they all see Dwarka submerged. And then when he's taking them away from Dwarka to Hastinapur, somewhere in present-day Rajasthan, the Abhiras, the dacoits attack, and what we discussed that way. Some women and children are taken away. Some survive who are taken back to Hastinapur. There is one grandson of Krishna who survives. His name is Vraj. So he is made the king of, unko Indraprasth de dete hain. He is made the king of Indraprasth. Some other Yadavs are settled in different parts. So some survive, but most of them are dead by then.
Wow.
So it's a very, it's very
intense.
Very intense.
Since you've spoken about so many supernatural events that are occurring, such as curses, people throwing weed at each other, which turns into iron rods and then they're dying. Can you give us a little bit of an insight into the celestial weapons used in the Mahabharata?
I'll say that, but let me also answer this. So as I had mentioned, Itihas, as I had mentioned before, is narrated in a very interesting way. It is Purva Vruttam, something that has happened in the past, and Katha Yuktam. It has some of these metaphorical, mystical sounding things.
Yeah.
But talking about celestial weapons, which is called Divyastra, you find the mention of Divyastra in our Itihas quite a bit. So the question is always that ye Astra, Divyastra kya hote hain? Do we have them today? There is no way for us to find out. But the descriptions given are very interesting. Shastra are weapons which you hold, you see. जैसे धनुष है, वो जो ये फेंकने वाला होता है, वो सब जो स्पेड जो वगैरह होता है, और या गदा है, या तलवार है,
arrows, spears,
all of that. They are all what you can see, you can hold, you can shoot. They are all shastras. Astras are usually mantras. So you have the same arrow, but it will be a mantra infused arrow which will become.
You mean it's charging it?
Kind of charging it. You are sort of charging it
and making it more potent.
Infusing it with mantras to make it more potent. So if you see in some other text, if you see the description of the Divyastra, they will actually have a mantra. But did everybody have access to that? No. In Mahabharat, Arjun, Karna, Bhishma, Dronacharya, and of course some others like Bhagdatta and Ashwathama a little bit, only they had access to some of these mantras, not the others. In the Pandavas, only Arjun. Duryodhana also did not have any access to the mantras, to the astras. Even they did not have. So it was not everybody's cup of tea. You had to really achieve a certain level.
I think you had to be worthy enough to get that mantra or to be initiated into the mantra and learn it.
Exactly.
And also I think, to be given to you as a vardhan, like, you had, there are so many classes. I was reading up about this, there are classification of divine weapons.
Correct.
One is from the Tridev weapons, like the Brahmastra, Brahmashira, etc. Then you have the Agni, on the elemental gods, like, Agni, Vayu, the Varunastra, which creates hailstorms and rain and, can confuse the enemy, etc. So there are so many things, but the question here is that who decided who was worthy enough to get these weapons? It was the Gurus?
Gurus.
All right.
Also, it was not as if sometimes people who were not worthy did not get it. See the example of Ashwathama. Ashwathama got it because his father sort of taught him. But he also knew only half. He knew how to release it, infuse and release it, but not how to call it back.
Correct.
So what exactly is this worthiness? How do I become worthy to learn?
That is what the Gurus will decide. And usually that will depend on how much mental control you have and how much Vivek Buddhi you have. Discrimination. When to use and when not to use. In fact, especially for the Tridev Astras, which were supposed to be the most potent, like Brahmastra and Pashupati Astra and all that, even when they were taught, there was a very clear instruction given that you do not use it on human beings. Do not use it on human beings, come what may. Only if you're faced with a supranormal, this non-human kind
like
of
a Rakshasa.
A very dangerous creature which you can't do anything against, only then, and if you're in a state that your life is in danger, you can use it. Because otherwise it creates immense harm. So you were not supposed to use it. So a person who could not differentiate or did not have the Vivek Buddhi to do it, typically wouldn't get it.
It's like your Spider-Man where they talk about, when he gets the powers, they say that with great power comes greater responsibility.
Exactly.
And I guess the same underlying meaning where, if you're not worthy, if you're not sensible enough to distinguish between when to use it and how to use it and on whom to use it, then you were not given that weapon.
Correct. Also, not everybody could have that kind of potent Shakti, concentrated Shakti to use it. Because if you're infusing a mantra, that means you yourself need to have immense focus. See, have you seen this experiment? It's very simplistic, but आप वो lens से लेते हो, है ना, एक पेपर यहाँ पड़ा होगा, फिर वो लेंस से आप, वैसे आप सूर्य के नीचे अगर पेपर रखोगे तो कुछ नहीं होगा, but when you concentrate that, the same energy, when you concentrate that and you flash a lens which has concentrated that paper will start burning.
There's a similar aspect in the Mahabharata itself when Dronacharya asks his disciples that there's a bird sitting on the tree over there. What do you all see? All of them say that, oh, I can see only the bird, I can see only the tree. But Arjuna says, I see only and only the eye of the bird.
Correct.
So that relates a lot to
that is intense concentration.
Right.
Which is not easy to come by.
Right.
And somebody who had that kind of focus. Now, what is that? That is also intense mental control. Arjun is also called Gudakesh. You know what is Gudakesh? What does Gudakesh means? Gudakesh means one who has achieved complete control over his sleep. See, some of our natural processes like hunger, thirst, sleep, these are natural instincts, right? To be able to control them is immensely difficult. Not impossible, but immensely difficult, especially over sleep.
In today's day and age also it's possible? Is it possible?
I don't know.
Like yogis claim to do that.
Yogis claim to do it. And there are some which you see around. So you will see some people who can do very well even with less sleep. But if you see their lifestyles, they are intensely disciplined.
Right.
Right? Intensely disciplined, no distractions, very focused in what they do. Only they can. And they would be doing certain practices like yoga, वगैरह वगैरह, concentration, ध्यान, meditation. वो जब करते हैं तभी वो आ सकता है. But again, not easy at all. Not at all easy to take your mind off the distractions and everything around you, right?
Right.
So only those who can. So that's why there were just few of them who really had it. The one who had most of them were Bhishma and Arjun.
Right. Also, when I was reading your book, I also came across this particular chapter in which you mentioned that war is now imminent. It's going to happen. All negotiations have failed. Everything has crumbled, and now they're going to go to war, both the sides. And both Duryodhan and Arjun reach Krishna. Krishna is sleeping.
Yes.
And they sit at his feet and they wait for him to wake up. And as soon as Krishna wakes up, he understands that why they are there. And Duryodhan immediately asks him that, I want your help, and so does Arjun. And he says that, this is another Dharam Sankat for me, that both of you are my,
somehow related to me.
I need to, help both of you. Both of you have come here. I cannot send you back empty-handed. So he says, okay, I will give you a choice that, either you take all my armies and all my might versus just me.
And I will not fight.
I will just be there on one of the sides. And Duryodhan immediately picks the entire set of armies of Krishna and leaves happily. And Arjuna is very happy that he has got only Krishna. He does not need the army. So why do you think that Arjuna already knew that, the importance of Krishna versus the armies, and, that also Krishna who was not going to fight?
Correct. So as I was telling you in the very beginning, Mahabharata is relevant even today. Okay. What has Arjun really done here? Actually, the choice is given to Arjun. Because Krishna says, I saw both of you at the same time. But Arjun is younger to you, Duryodhan. Okay. And I saw him first. You both had come here. Although Duryodhan, you might have come before, I saw him first and he's younger to you. So he should get a chance to choose. Now Duryodhan is very concerned. He kya mangega?
Ye to armies le lega sare.
Also remember this. Duryodhan had a much larger fleet than Pandavas. Pandavas had 7 Akshahunis. That guy had 11. Okay. Roughly 1 Akshahuni is 2.5 lakh. People. So 2.5 into 7 versus 2.5 into 11. Okay, 11 to chalo, use taking one of ye. So 10 to ho gaya tha, 11th was what Krishna's army gave him. But at that point, Arjun chooses Krishna. And Duryodhan is very happy. He's like, kaisa bewkoof hai? Acha hai, usne choose kar liya, and he's happy with the army. Now, what has Arjun done here? So Krishna asks him, he's like, why did you choose me? I told you I'm not even going to fight. Arjun says, I know my strength. I know my samarthya. I know what I can do. Which also means he knows what he can't do, and he knows where he needs help. In corporate, आज हम क्या करते हैं? We do SWOT analysis, strengths and weaknesses. Who is a good leader? Who can take better decisions? Who very objectively knows what are his strengths and what are his weaknesses and where he needs help.
Is it to do with mental strength? Because physically he had all the powers.
Absolutely.
And all the Astras and the Shastras, etc. He was a master of everything.
Absolutely.
And I guess probably he chose Krishna is because he knew that, okay, I'm going to have faced many dharam sankats during this war. And that is when I need that
Correct.
mental clarity. And that's what Krishna brings on the
Absolutely.
table.
And Krishna has been there for them throughout.
Right.
Guiding them. Rajsuya yagna karna hai ki nahi karna hai, negotiations karna hai ki nahi karna hai. So he knows that Krishna has their best interest in their heart and he will always give the right advice. So Krishna says, I have the capability to fight. I can take over all of them. I want you to be my Sarathi, to guide me, to show me the way when I need to. So if you have that clarity about your own strengths and weaknesses, and if you make the right choices, of course your chances of success are much higher, right? That is what Arjun has.
Also, since you touched upon the word Sarthi, which is charioteer here, actually charioteer again is an English word, and Sarthi has got a much broader meaning because I read about it in the Ramayana and the Mahabharata both. That the Sarthis were actually so tuned into whom they are carrying on their chariots that they would be telepathically in sync with each other, and they knew when to pull the warrior out of the war and give him a respite. And there was an incident where I think Krishna pulls Arjuna away and he starts screaming and shouting that, why are you taking me away from the war? And why are you doing this? And
Actually,
Krishna
that
explains.
happens in
It
Ramayana.
happens in the Ramayana also, Ravan also.
Ravan, haan.
And so the word Sarthi is very interesting, and I don't know if you can shed some light at what is the root of that in Sanskrit.
So Sarathi are charioteers, yes. But Sarathis are not drivers in that sense.
Right.
Because if it would be that way and if it would be derogatory, would Krishna agree? No, right? See, in a war, the warrior is fighting, but where to take, how to take, whether the warrior is in the condition to fight, where is danger, where is no danger, how will he live or how will he be protected? Who is going to do that? The Sarthi, right? So Sarthi not only knows how to drive the chariot, he also knows the warfare techniques going on, navigation, also the war strategies, right? He should be able to predict kaun kahan se kya karne wala hai and how it will impact his warrior. Hence, the Sarathis were always very, very close friends and confidants of the Rajas, the warriors in general. The incident that you mentioned actually comes because yahan pe to it's very clear, now Krishna is a friend, a guide to Arjun anyways.
Right.
In that case, Ravan, in Ramayana, Ravan is a Raja. And his Sarathi, of course, knows him and all, but still he's a master, right? So एक incident में ऐसे होता है that Sri Ram and Ravan are fighting and Ravan is majorly injured. Sri Ram is also getting tired, but Ravan is majorly injured. So seeing that he's sort of fainting, the Sarathi takes him away. So Ravan starts screaming that ऐसे क्यों किया? People will think I'm a coward and all of that. And the charioteer says, Sarathi says, my job is to ensure you survive and you fight well. I saw that you were struggling. So what I've done is only my dharma. I had to ensure that you survive and you are fit enough to come back and fight again. Now I will go back. My role is only not just to only navigate and drive you around, but also your safety. So I have done that. I have only done my job. Ravan obviously can't say anything else. So that is a Sarathi.
I would now like to take you a little bit ahead of the war, and I would love for you to shed some light on what exactly happened after the war. What was the aftermath of the war?
Yudhishthir is a broken man. They also get to know that Karna is their brother.
Right.
So Yudhishthir is a broken man and he's like, what has happened? So much destruction I have caused. Now what do I rule on? Like widows, crying widows. That is what my kingdom has been reduced to. So what is the point of all this? I cannot survive with this much guilt. I will run away. I want to go take sannyas. जो position में अर्जुन थे ना पहले, उस position में युधिष्ठिर है. He's like, I don't want this at all. I don't want this Rajya. I am going to the Vanvas and I am doing Prashchita. People eventually convince him and they say that running away is not an option. What is tough is to stay here, fight and ensure that you bring joy to your people. You take away their sorrow. You help them deal with their grief. That is your duty. That is your dharma. Not running away or not going to sannyas. That is escapism.
That's the easy way out.
Easy way out. You cannot do this. You should be doing this, not just for your kingdom, but also for other kingdoms, because you had allies, right? You and even the Duryodhana had allies, people who participated in the war for both of you. They have also lost their people. So you have to ensure you help them as well. So eventually, after a lot of convincing, Yudhishthir agrees to get his Rajabhishek done, but he's still a little upset. And then eventually, that is actually we now enter what is called Shanti Parva. It is the longest section of Mahabharata. There are 18 parts in Mahabharata.
Which we have never seen on television or in general folklore, because once it in the television series Mahabharata ends technically when the war is over.
Yes.
But actually there's so much more. I'm glad he brought up this topic about what happens after that. And I also understand that their treasuries were depleted also, is what you mentioned.
Depleted. कुछ नहीं था ना. आप इतना बड़ा युद्ध करते हो, क्या होगा? तो इसलिए then first there is a suggestion that they have to do the Ashwamedh Yagna. That is one. But even more importantly, Krishna tells Yudhishthir that, अच्छा, वहाँ युद्ध हुआ है and warriors have died, but there is one warrior who's still surviving, and he's surviving on a bed of arrows. Who's that?
On a bed of
arrows. On the bed of arrows.
Bishma Pitamah.
Right. So Bhishma is still not dead. He has what we call Ichha Mrityu, Swachhanda Marana. So he can choose the time of his death.
Right.
So he's still alive. Okay, he's completely battered and all that, but he's still alive. So Arjun tells Yudhishthir that Bhishma is one person who has the most experience of administration and who understands the do's and don'ts of Raj Dharma, the Dharma of a Raja, very well. Basically, he knows how a leader needs to lead in this situation. Before he dies, gain all the wisdom that he has. And that is what we call Shanti Parva, which is the largest. There are 18 sections. This is the largest section, where there is a discourse, a dialogue between Yudhishthir and Bhishma on leadership lessons, on lessons on administration. It's beautiful when you read it.
Which can be applied to today's modern world.
Absolutely. So, as you know, I have written 2 books on Mahabharata. Mahabharata Unravelled 1 talks with the myths and the key story. Mahabharata Unravelled 2, I have focused on these discourses. And people who've read and given me a review, they say that this doesn't feel like a religious text. It feels like leadership text. It feels like a leadership handbook for today. Because Raja is what? He's a leader at the end of the day.
Right.
Fantastic lessons. That is a discussion between them.
It's not as heavy as the first book, now, because the first book just blew our mind.
First book is about stories. So this is also, well, I would say this is also heavy because it's about lessons. But it is in a different form because it's a discourse.
Right.
But that is one major part. Then we have the story around the Ashwamedha, which I also spoke about, this one incident about Arjun. Then we hear about the death of Kunti, Dhritarashtra, Gandhari. Everybody
They give themselves up in the forest fire.
In the forest fire, exactly. Death of Vidur, all that has happened after 15 years of the Yuddha. Eventually, Dwarka has submerged, Krishna's Dehatyag has happened. And these Pandavas, they crown Parikshit as the Raja, and they also choose to leave. That is what then eventually happens.
Since we have come to what happens after the war, there's also a myth that I would love for you to debunk right now, is that after this war, even though the Pandavas were fighting for a good reason and the Kauravas were considered to be the evil villains, is what some people say, but the Pandavas were sentenced to hell, that is Nark, and the Kauravas were sentenced to Swarg, that is heaven. What's the truth and why?
Okay. So this is half the story.
Okay.
And I'm glad you brought it up because I covered this story also in the second book, not in the first book. I covered in the second book because this episode, the idea of this episode is to teach what is the Karma Siddhanta. We have the Karma Siddhanta, the karmic cycle that we talk about. This episode explains the Karma Siddhanta. So what really happens? We know that the 4 Pandavas and Draupadi, one by one, they sort of fall off. And eventually it's Yudhishthir who is taken to Swarga. That's how it comes. Okay. So when he goes to Swarga, now I see this as one of those legends, metaphors, to explain certain incident or to explain certain principle. So the way it is told is that Yudhishthir goes to Swarg, what he thinks is the Swarg, and there he sees Duryodhan sitting in all luxury. Yudhishthir is flabbergasted because the whole destruction has happened because of this one man, right? Yeah. The ego of this man, provoked by Karna, who is not even willing to compromise on anything. Yeah. Even though his father, his mother, his grandfather, everybody is telling him don't fight the war. There he is having fun. So Yudhishthira is like, what is this? Why is this man here? Where are my brothers? Where is my wife? So the dutas there, the people in the Swarga, they tell him, oh, we'll tell you. Don't get angry. Anyways, now you're not on the earth anymore. So don't keep any bad feelings for Duryodhan. This is a separate place. So give up any bad feelings you have and we'll take you somewhere. So Yudhishthira is thinking they'll take him to his brothers and his wife. So he follows the dutas, the Swarg mein jo Indra ke liye kaam karte hain. वो उनके इंद्र के जो मैसेंजर्स हैं उनके पास वो जा रहे हैं पीछे. Now धीरे the scene starts changing. Suddenly they enter a narrow alley and there's a lot of durgandh, a lot of smell of rotting flesh. Yeah. Then he looks around and he's like, there's some bones strewn here, some flesh strewn there. Then suddenly it opens into a big field. But big field of what? Like big ghadas of tel. And he sees people being tortured. And there's screaming going on and there are flies and it's all very obnoxious. At one point, it gets too much for him. And he's not able to tolerate that smell and he starts feeling giddy. So he asks that dutas, ki ye kahan par hai hum? Where are we?
Dutas are the servants of
the servants who were leading him there. Yeah, okay. So he's like, where are we? So the dutas say, oh, acha, is this enough for you? Are you not able to take it? Theek hai, ho gaya, we'll take you back. So Yudhishthira is like, okay, theek hai. And he also is turning to go away from that place. Suddenly, he hears some familiar voices rather. And they say that, Arey, bhai, don't go away. We are in a lot of pain, but your presence here is somehow very calming for us. He hears Draupadi's voice, he hears Arjun's voice, and he is beyond shock. And he's now getting angry. He's like, what the hell? The man who led to the destruction of my family is sitting there having
in
fun.
Luxury, yeah.
And here, my brothers, my wife, who've done no wrong to anybody, they are in this much torture. What is even going on? So he's in that state of shock, and the dutas tell him, "Chalo, this place is not for you. Aap chalo yahan se. Theek hai, you have to go away. This is not for you." That's what. So they are saying, we have to go away from here. This place is not for you. For you, we have that place of Swarg. So Yudhishthira says, I don't care for your Swarg. If this is how the repercussions of good work are going to be, and if this place is what my brothers and my wife deserve, I will stay here.
So be it.
So be it. I don't want your Swarg or anything. When he says this, suddenly the scene changes again. The rotting flesh goes away. The smell goes away. Suddenly it's all nice. There is cool breeze. The voices go away, which has been hearing of his brothers and wife. All that goes away. The whole torturing scene, all that goes away. It all becomes nice and happy and beautiful over there. And Indradev and Yamraj and they all come there. And they're like, we were testing you. Ki, what do you do in this situation? But we are very happy that you still chose to stick by your family and do what was right thing to do. Stick to your dharma. Exactly, that's what they say. That you stood by your dharma and we are very happy. We were testing you. Then they say, whatever happened right now was only a glimpse. We just had to give you the experience of Nark. Because Indra says, there is nobody who doesn't do any bad. कुछ ना कुछ तो सबसे हो ही जाता है. And he says the way the karma siddhanta works is that if you do some action which is not good, you have to face the repercussions of it. You do something good, you get the gains of that. One doesn't cut the other. Yeah, एक ने दूसरे को फिटूस कर लिया ऐसा नहीं होता है.
Enjoy the good stuff and suffer the bad.
Exactly. You have to suffer the bad, you have to enjoy the good. You will enjoy the good.
Yeah.
And he says the way it works is that those who have done more good and less bad, they will first go through the bad, the repercussions. They will suffer the bad first and then for a longer time enjoy till the good lasts. It is the other way for those who have more bad and little good.
So they enjoy the good first and then it's a lifelong of suffering.
So this that they gave him, when he saw his loved one suffering over there, was that an actual thing that
they had? That was, so he also had to go through that experience.
It was an experience, like maybe
so that
an illusion.
experience of suffering was important.
but were they actually suffering, or was it that scene created in front of him to make?
The scene was created. The scene was created for him to experience the suffering.
It's like an illusion first.
But the suffering was real.
Yeah.
So that is it now. Your suffering was real, which he had to go through. That was whatever bad might have happened to him. Same for his brothers and wife. The little bit of suffering, but eventually then it ends when he's going back. Then he's told ki your brothers and wife are all in Swarga. You will also go to Swarga, but you can't go to Swarga in the human body. That is not possible. So now you give up this body and then you will actually go into Swarga. So then is actually when the Swarga starts. Everything else is just basically an illusion created to test him. And then eventually when he goes, he sees his brothers, his wife, everybody back into their original form. He sees Draupadi as a Devi. He sees Krishna in the Vishnu avatar, the Narayana avatar. And he sees Arjun in the Nara avatar, worshipping the Narayan. And that's where then Mahabharata finally ends.
So one of the questions that is coming on my mind right now is about Bishma Pitamah. And as I read your book, it seems that he was just completely undefeatable in the war. And twice the Pandavas approach him and they ask him, how do we kill you? How do we win against you? And the second time he actually tells them how to do it. So why would he do that? And why would, anyone tell his opponent that how do you kill me?
When we undertake a big project, what do? We go bow to our elders, right? When we bow to our elders give us Ashirwad. That Ashirwad is usually good Ashirwad, right? So what does Yudhishthir do? Before the war starts, Yudhishthir walks over to the other side. He bows to his elders. It is their responsibility now. They did not offer to do it. It is now their responsibility to bless him.
He sort of compels them to bless him.
Absolutely. So Bhishma says, I'm happy you came, because if you wouldn't have come, I would have cursed you with losses. Yeah, that you would lose in this war. But now that you've come, I'm very happy. And I'm giving you Ashirwad, and ask whatever you want to ask me, except for fighting on your side, because that I can't do. Okay, obviously, if he says fight on my side, he's like, that I can't do. I have to fight on this side. But beyond that, you ask me for whatever Ashirwad. So then Yudhishthir very smartly says, it is impossible to defeat you in the war, unless you tell us how we can. So please tell us. At that point, Bhishma says, this is not the time. Come back again. When the time is right, I will tell you. Okay. And he goes back. So whose smartness is this? Like choosing Krishna as the smartness of Arjun. Whose smartness is this?
Yudhishthir.
If Duryodhan would have come to Yudhishthir, because he was the elder of Duryodhan,
Right.
Yudhishthir would also have to bless him. But those guys don't have those understanding. Vyavharik buddhi nahi hai.
Right.
These guys are humble. They are smart and have the Vyavharik buddhi. So, pehle to, of course, he sent them back with the assurance that when the time comes, I'll tell you. Yuddha ke 9 din ho gaye. It's almost like they have reached an impasse.
They're halfway through the war.
Not even, they don't know if it's the halfway yet, but it is 9 days of fighting, right? It's reached an impasse. Because Bhishma Pitamah had already told Duryodhan that I will not kill the Pandavas. I will kill their soldiers, I will kill their armies, but not the Pandavas.
And
if
he
you're
went
okay
about
with that,
destroying them thoroughly in the first 9 days.
absolutely, right? He's not been easy on the army at all. He's killed so many warriors. He's killed so many people in the army. All that he has done. But he's not killing the Pandavas. Now, unless the Pandavas are killed, there is no way they are going to win the war. Kauravas are going to win the war, right? So, Yudhishthir is really concerned if Bhishma is allowed and nobody is able to stop him. Arjun also is not yet in that mode to really stop him. And Bhishma Pitamah is quite skilled anyways. So Yudhishthir is really concerned because he's like, अरे ऐसे चलते रहा तो हम तो 5 बच जाएंगे, but army नहीं रहेगी तो क्या? On the other side, Duryodhan is getting very restless. Why? Because until Bhishma Pitamah falls, Karna has taken the pratigya to not enter till Bhishma Pitamah is the Senapati.
Right. It's an ego battle between them.
Correct. So Karna is not fighting. Duryodhan has a lot of trust in Karna. While Bhishma Pitamah is killing the army of Pandavas, he's not killing the Pandavas. Pandavas are also destroying his army and his warriors, right? So he is also not happy with Bhishma Pitamah being there. क्योंकि उनके कारण पांडव नहीं मर रहे हैं, आर्मी मर रही है, पर उसके भी लोग मर रहे हैं, कर्ण भी नहीं आ पा रहा है. So Duryodhan also wants him out of the way, and Yudhishthir obviously wants him out of the way. And Bhishma Pitamah also realizes that it's enough. Now it's enough. He अंदर से उनको लग रहा है कि अब टाइम आ गया है. So on the 9th day, again, Yudhishthir takes the initiative to go to him and ask him कि आपने कहा था कि आप बताएंगे what is the way to tackle you. And Bhishma says that, okay, now I will tell you. But he doesn't say directly. He says that I have taken a pratigya to not retaliate when people of this characteristics come my way. And in that one characteristic is that if somebody was a woman before, ऐसा कोई मेरे सामने आएगा तो I will not fight that person. However, again there is a myth which you see in the television कि शिखंडी जो है वो अर्जुन के रथ पे है और शिखंडी is just standing. And because शिखंडी is standing, Arjun is continuing to fight and Bhishma Pitamah does not retaliate. That's not how it is. Shikhandi is a warrior. So they think Shikhandi is going to kill him. Okay. So when the Yuddha starts, Shikhandi is in the lead and Bhim and Arjun and all are
They're
protecting
all right there.
Shikhandi. Okay. But Shikhandi is no match to Bhishma. So Shikhandi जब भी उन पर बाण छोड़ रहा है तो Bhishma is not responding to Shikhandi at all, but he's still killing the others. It's not as if he's not fighting. छोड़ छाड़ के बैठ गए ऐसा नहीं है. He's still fighting, but he's not hitting Shikhandi. Now, if he's not hitting Shikhandi, if somebody is behind Shikhandi and that person is hitting Bhishma, then Bhishma is also retaliating, but he has to try and avoid Shikhandi.
Right.
That is the only difference. That's the only skew here. Because Arjun is still hitting Bhishma and Bhishma is hitting back to Arjun. Okay. Just that he's trying to avoid Shikhandi. And at some point, Bhishma realizes कि मेरे को जो बाण लग रहे हैं ये तो अर्जुन के ही हैं. And he's like, ऐसा इतना momentum के साथ तो और कुछ नहीं आ सकता है. Eventually then, Arjun overpowers him.
And he drops his weapons also, right?
But that is not out of कि अच्छा drop, ऐसे drop नहीं किया है. Finally, उनको शरीर पर लगा इतना है कि drop हो जाता है. But he's fighting till the very last moment.
I'm like just amazed at the number of characters in the Mahabharata. And, in one episode, we barely scratched the surface. And we've talked about the popular characters, but I hope we get time with you some other day where we can talk a lot about other characters. But one character I want to bring out is Ganga. She drowns 7 of her children. And to me, I just wonder why she would do that. First of all, I would just like to give us some context to our listeners that, who was Ganga here in the larger scheme of things and why did she do this?
Yeah. So the story comes in the very beginning of Mahabharata,
right.
And the way it comes is that Shantanu is a Raja of the Kuru Vansh, okay, of the Bharat Vansh, Kuru Vansh, and he one day sees this beautiful lady by by Ganga, by that river. He sees this extremely beautiful lady and he falls in love with her. Ganga also falls for him and they decide to get married. Now, Ganga says, I like you, but I have only one condition here, that you should never question me. Whatever I do, you shouldn't question me. Shantanu is so madly in love with her, he's like, I will not question you. You do what you want, but you marry me. Ho jata hai, they get married and they're very happy. Till one day, when Ganga gives birth to their first child. Shantanu is extremely happy. But Ganga takes the child, the newborn baby, goes to the river and drowns it. Obviously, Shantanu is shocked. Kya kiya ye? Only a mad woman can do that, right? But he knows that he has given her a promise that he'll not question. So he doesn't say anything. She comes back again, they live their lives happily. Another bacha. Same thing. Same thing goes on
7 times.
7 times. Okay. Eventually, he's like, what's going on? What kind of a woman are you? In today's terms, he would have said, psychopath, okay? He just doesn't say that. But he's really angry. He's like, what are you doing? At least don't kill this son of mine, the 8th son. So Ganga is like, okay, now you've broken your condition. So fine, I will not kill this son. You will have this son, but I will not stay with you anymore. And I will take the son away right now. When the time is right, I'll get him. Okay. So obviously, this is a very weird story, right? A weird happening. What has happened here? So I'll tell you what has happened and the other way to see this. Okay. So there is a backstory to this. The backstory, we are told that Ganga has Ganga and Shantanu. See, every character in Mahabharata Ramayana will usually has a backstory. Something that's going on at the cosmic level. Okay, so the backstory for Ganga is that she and Shantanu were actually devas. She was an Apsara and Shantanu was also in the court of Indra. Something happens, they get cursed to be born on earth. At that time, there are these 8 Vasus. Okay, these 8 Vasus are driven by one of the main Vasu. They commit some prank or they steal away some guy of a rishi. ऐसा कुछ तो दिया है. So the rishi curses
what is
them.
a Vasu?
वसु इज जैसे ये हम 11 रुद्र 8 वसु ऐसे बोलते हैं, तो सम डेटीज एट दैट लेवल. तो वो जो वसु है वो लोग कुछ तो मस्ती करते हैं, दे स्टील द गाय ऑफ अ ऋषि. सो द ऋषि कर्सेस देम टू बी बोर्न ऑन प्लैनेट अर्थ, बट दे आर वसु. सो अब जन्म तो लेना पड़ेगा, है ना. सो दे कन्विंस गंगा टू बी अ मदर टू देम व्हेन दे आर गेटिंग बर्थ. बट they want to get out of this janma. They don't want to be a part of the sansar. They want to get out of it. So they say, you give us birth, because what is the curse? You have to take birth. Whatever takes birth dies. The faster you die, you are out of it, right? Because it's the vasu. So they tell her that you be the medium that gives us birth, but release us as soon as we are born. So she promises them, and that's what happens. But the main vasu is not allowed that, because he's committed, he's been the one to commit that scene, and he's been the one to encourage others to do it. So he has to go through the karma. Okay, that 8th Vasu is supposed to be Bhishma. Now there's another story that 7 Vasus give him all the strength and all that, but the key is that this one Vasu cannot get out so soon. He has to go through the punishment that he's given.
But couldn't Ganga have told Shantanu this? Like, she just goes away without telling him why?
The thing is, Shantanu does not remember the past. No, none of us remember the past janma.
Right.
Even we believe or we don't believe. Even if we believe, do we know what is our past janma? And if somebody tells us that, do you think he will be able to take it?
Nobody will.
But Ganga knows, so she has to do her role, and she has to be that nimitta to actually drown her own sons, right? So that's the story. But now there is another thing to it. We're always concerned about कैसे हो गया, बच्चा जन्मता है and मर जाता है without nobody's done anything. But 2 months, 3 months, or the baby is born dead, and people are always asking क्यों, ऐसा क्यों हुआ, right? There is no answer to this, and nobody is going to come and tell us the backstory. But the way to see it is that probably this was just the nimitta. That was the karma they had to fulfill. They finished the karmas and they went back. That's it. It just makes it so much easier to accept such situations.
Right.
That unka utna hi tha.
Another learning lesson from the Mahabharata.
How do you deal with such situations?
Wow.
They lived their karma, which was probably only this much. So they were probably blessed souls. And they went to it. And the person who's been a nimitta is also probably that blessed soul who's allowed that to happen, who became a nimitta for that.
That's unbelievable, but.
So, ma'am, I would like to take you back to one of the main characters in the Mahabharata, who's usually taken for granted his entire life journey, and his name is Krishna.
Taken for granted, huh, Krishna?
Yeah, because nobody really, in my generation at least, nobody really knows his roots and from where he comes and his struggles as a kid. So I would love for you to shed some light on his birth. And before his birth also, there's a legend that there's a prophecy that the Devi Shakti can said something. So could you just shed some light on that?
So in Mahabharata, Krishna comes during Draupadi's Swayamvar. Mainly, his presence is made, he enters the scene. Think of it as a stage. Stage mein unki entry kab hoti hai? Draupadi ke Swayamvar ke waqt. But there is a story of Krishna's own life, which comes in Harivamsha Puran, which is sort of an appendix to Mahabharata, and Bhagavad Puran, which is all about Krishna only. Krishna, his birth and all of that. So that's where, so Harivansh Puran and Bhagavad Puran, and a little bit indication in Mahabharata, we get about Krishna. Krishna is a key character in Mahabharata. But the story of Mahabharata is not a story of Krishna's life. It is a story of the Pandavas and Kauravas, where he is a guiding factor. ठीक है? इसलिए उनके इस पे इतना past पे इतना focus नहीं है. But these stories come from about his story comes from Harivamsha Puran and Bhagavad Puran. So Krishna kaun hai? He is born in the Yadava clan. Yadav is not one clan. Yadav में भी बहुत सारे अलग-अलग हैं. Vrishnis है, Bhoj है, Andhak है, वगैरह-वगैरह ऐसे बहुत हैं. ठीक है? He is born to Vasudev and Devaki, his parents, to whom he is born. Devaki has a step brother, or actually Chacha's brother, who's Kans. Kans is the king of Mathura. He's the head of the Yadavas. There are many chiefs of the Yadavas. He's one of the chiefs and who was ruling over Mathura. He is a very evil person. As in, he's not a good man. Okay, he's very proud of his strength. He will want his way and to get his
He's a
way.
very egoistic leader.
Very ahankari and wouldn't care about good or bad as long as he wants to have his way and all that. And people are not very happy with him. That's the background. In that background, eventually Devaki, his sister, is married to Vasudeva. And at that time, Kans is very happy because his sister has gotten married. And he's taking the sister away to drop her to her sasural. And there is an Akashvani that says that you're very happy right now, but her child is only going to kill you. Obviously, he's very angry. Okay. And he wants to kill Devaki first. But Vasudeva, who's just married to Devaki, says, please don't do that. She's a lady. She's a sister. Don't kill her. It's about the son, no? The 8th child. Her 8th child will kill you. So we don't even know if it's going to be true or not true. But in any case, I promise you that when a child is born to us, we'll give the child to you. That is your problem, right? Why kill your sister? He at least wants to avoid killing of Devaki at that point. So Kans is like, हाँ ठीक है, मान जाता हूँ. And पहले तो he lets them go. But then he realizes what if they don't come back and all that. So then he imprisons them. Okay. And he puts them under house arrest and all this. फिर पहला बच्चा होता है. First son is born. And पहले तो he's thinking, why kill? It's the 8th son, na? Then somebody tells him, you never know. Who knows 8th ya 1st ya whatever. What if the Akashvani is not right? So why take risk? So he starts killing. So he kills the first son, second son, third son, fourth son, fifth son, then a 6th son. Then the 7th time she's pregnant, we are told that her pregnancy is actually taken away and there is a surrogacy kind of a stuff that happens. And Rohini, the other wife of Vasudeva, she becomes pregnant. Okay. So, कैसे होता है कि इनका गर्भ उनमें डाल दिया जाता है. आज वो टेस्ट ट्यूब बेबी वगैरह सब करता है ना, something of that sort. We don't exactly know what happened. But that गर्भ, so Rohini becomes pregnant and she gives birth to Balram. Okay. जो दाऊ भैया जिसे कहते हैं. And then the 8th child born is Krishna. But Krishna, when he is born, he has to live, right? So something very interesting happens. All the guards taking care there, they suddenly fall asleep and all of that. And the gates open. And Vasudeva also breaks open the gates and all that. And he takes Krishna away. He crosses the Yamuna, takes Krishna away, and he leaves him, that baby, at the house of somebody he knows called Nanda Baba, who is at that time in Gokul. Okay, Gokul mein wo hai. And even his wife has just delivered a baby. And it was a very tough delivery. So she's unconscious. And that baby is a girl. Okay, so Vasudeva keeps his son there, takes away the baby and comes back. Nobody knows. Sometimes when things have to happen, the world makes it happen. We can't even explain what happened, but it happens. Okay, something or some phenomenon like that has happened. And he gets the baby girl back.
How did he cross the Yamuna river though? Because it said in the story that there's a lot of storms and
so Krishna is born on Janmashtami. So he's born on Ashtami Tithi of Bhadrapad Krishna Paksha. It's either Bhadrapad Krishna Paksha or Shravan Krishna Paksha, depending on how you see the calendar. Okay. Krishna Paksha is the time of the waning moon. Waning moon in the sense, आपका पूर्णिमा से अमावस्या तक जा रहा है, उसका अष्टमी तिथि. Basically, the moon is becoming छोटू of Bhadrapad or Shravan Mas, as I said, depending on how you see the Purnima Anta or Amas Anta. That is the time of the rainy season. Anyways, it's monsoon season. So even today, Janmashtami के दिन पे बारिश होता है और होता ही है हमेशा. So उस दिन भी बहुत बारिश हुआ and the Yamuna was overflowing. But still, Vasudeva somehow, when things have to happen, they happen. You will somehow get help in whatever form, which you call divine intervention, right? Some of these things you just can't explain. But at that point, Vasudeva he walked across the Yamuna, we are told. He crosses maybe he swam, we don't know. He must have just swam with the baby or something. And he gets that baby girl back. He's thinking maybe there is a girl, so maybe Kans might not kill, right? Kans is also surprised that how can it be? How is a baby born? The girl born. It was supposed to be a boy. But he's again like, why take chances? And he tries to throw and kill the baby girl. But then that baby, we are told, is also Devi, Maya, Yoga Maya. And she just flies off. And she says, you think you can't be killed? The one who's going to kill you is already born. And she vanishes. Uske baad se, Kans tries his best to find those babies who were born around that time and kill them. So many he gets killed. There are so many bachas because he doesn't know where Krishna is. Nobody knows except Vasudev. Ki Krishna kahan par hai. Wahan pe all celebrations and everything have happened in Gokul. Ki this bacha is born. Some of his messengers start figuring out that here also bacha is born, and they start attempting to kill Krishna. But वो फिर जो हम कहते हैं कि उनकी बाण लीला, which is then worshipped, yeah, that's how like there is always death mandrawing over his head,
Right.
but he manages to get out of it. So that is the birth of Krishna.
Okay, so one last question to end the podcast. The decade before the current one, before 2020, was a sort of a linear decade. We did not see the disasters that we see today, and we're not even halfway through this decade. For example, we have 2 wars going on right now. Then we had COVID. Then we had economic crisis in many countries. There's a lot of depression and suicide rates are at an all-time high right now. This is not the most conventional decade. But before COVID, these kind of podcasts were not even being recorded based on Hindu Dharma, our scriptures, yogic techniques and politics. So why is it suddenly happening now?
What happened during COVID is this kind of a situation which was more biochemical or a virus spreading across in this measure.
Yeah.
The world has not seen in this measure. पहले भी वो SARS वगैरह epidemics हुआ है. ठीक है, SARS epidemics have happened. If you see, there are many such epidemics which have had global impact also. They have happened. This was after a long time. When this epidemic happened, what happened? Suddenly, the world came to a halt. Right? There was lockdown. There was no movement. Uske pehle tak everybody was busy doing their jobs, this, that. Now everybody suddenly in their homes. There is what you were supposed to do, you're not doing. You have a lot of time. What do you do when you have time? Suddenly the brain goes into all the ways. There were initially people who just couldn't handle it. Lots of stories of mental health breakdown, all that started happening. Okay. But it stretched on for quite a while. Now, when you have time and when you're forced to sit without doing anything, the brain will not sit without doing anything. It will still continue to work. You start re-evaluating with so much death around you, right? So many people died. We start re-evaluating what matters and what doesn't matter in life. We start trying to figure out reasons, or we start asking questions as to ऐसा क्यों हो रहा है? Because this is out of the ordinary, right? Why is this happening? What does it mean? Where do you seek your answers? Eventually, you will always go back to Adhyatma, spirituality, right? Because these answers are not easy. How do you deal with grief? How do you deal with losses? How do you deal with a sudden change of pace in your life? Where are the answers? Eventually, you will have to go to you will have to learn to deal with your emotions. How do you deal with your emotions? By developing the right perspective. How do you develop the right perspective? By having some sort of Adhyatma spirituality. So that was just the natural progress that happened. But when you say, how did podcast and everything become so big? I think there's something to do with even technology. Okay. इसके पहले Zoom वगैरह आ गया था. YouTube and all that was already there. But a lot of things, like people used to work in offices, right? They changed their model to work from home. People realize that you don't always have to move to do things. You can sit at home and consume a lot of content just because now you were sitting at home. Things which were not accepted before. जैसे घर से काम करना है या सिर्फ सुनना है. You saw things live, right?
Right.
And second, what did you want to hear? Things which gave you answers to the questions you were looking for. The search that you had. Lot of people went through that, right? And whenever this happens, you will see people moving more and more and more towards spirituality because material comfort. When COVID happened and people died, is it that only Garib people died? Even Amir people died? Did money do anything to the Amir people?
Nothing.
Which was money couldn't guarantee your life. Money couldn't guarantee your happiness. Money couldn't guarantee your safety. So then people start realizing that, acha, if not money, then what? Something beyond money. What is that? And these discussions started becoming more and more popular. That's how I see it.
Right. Right.
So I think this has been a great learning. We would like to thank you for coming on the show, ma'am. And we also request that, sometime when you have some more time, I really want to threadbare your book on Mahabharata especially, because it has so many characters that I don't think that in one episode we can cover everything. We've just barely scratched the surface, like I said earlier. And I hope we see you again. And thank you so much, and namaste.